Gold for Beginners, unlocking strategies, safe storage, and digital bullion innovations. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainsley Insights, brought to you by Ainsley.com.au, the home of Ainsley Bullion, Ainsley Crypto, Ainsley Wealth, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Be sure to have a look. Today, welcome back, Bailey. He loves coming on here, speaking to people across the bullion, a spectrum of people who've been buying bullion before and new people, but specifically wanted to talk today about some things for people who might be new to the space, and I think that'll be really useful for everyone. How are you going today, Bailey?
Really good, Chris. Thanks for having me back on.
And thanks for coming back on. I know people have really been enjoying listening to sort of your perspective on some of this, because you do have a lot of sort of behind the scenes ideas, but this is an interesting angle to approach for people who are new. And I thought we could attack a few questions here, but let's start off today looking at the motivation, really. Why, what are the benefits? What are the motivations that people have when they're coming to this space? So I think that'd be a good place to start, maybe looking at why people are looking to gold to potentially to diversify their portfolios. Maybe if you could elaborate a little bit on the inflation aspect, because there's a lot here. And what are some of those questions you get when people are first coming to the space?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I'll try and keep it high level because we are sort of focusing on, I suppose, the beginner outlook on this episode. But I think you touched on it a little bit there. Now, why would people buy gold? Why would beginners buy gold is a very broad question. But I think for a lot of people from the financial point of view, and I'm talking physical bullion here, from a purely financial point of view, it comes down to that inflationary argument. So the unique thing about precious metals and gold specifically is it's naturally capped. There is only going to be as much gold that currently exists in the earth that can be pulled up out of the ground. That's it. There's not going to be any more of it. So from the supply and demand, it's not a crazy leap to know what that does to the asset. It's a deflationary asset. As it gets more expensive, as it gets more sought after, and as more gets bought up and hoarded, there is less that is available, and you can't just issue more gold. Whereas, shares and other assets in the similar ballpark, of course, there is no sort of cap. You can issue more shares. You can, it's digital. There is no hoarding. There's no holding of things up. And what you actually also get with a lot of those other assets as well is you're introducing third party risk. So
Right.
you might look at a share, you might look at a company and think it's really good, but then the CEO or the marketing department go and do something that maybe wasn't in the plan or something you didn't expect, and that's just a variable that you have to consider. Whereas gold is what it is. There's no CEO of gold. It is purely going to react organically to the forces at play in the market. So I think it's highly attractive to a lot of people as a catalyst to avoid risk in their portfolio for that simple reason. Now, one step further into why the physical over, say, just holding shares in a gold miner or holding paper gold on on some sort of trading platform is, it just comes down to the pure fact that we say it all the time here, and a lot of our customers resonate with this, is if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Now, that is a powerful statement for a lot of people, because when they look at their portfolio, going back to the share argument, you don't have that tangibility. You are subject to the risks of that company changing the structure of their shares, changing the structure of the company. Gold, if you hold it and you have it in your safe at home, you are the only person who can control that from any external force, whether that be philosophically, governmentally, or whether that be financially and the risks that come with that. So that's why I think a lot of people go to the physical over the paper gold or other options, because you don't have to worry about an exchange shutting down or being exposed to sort of scam risk or anything like that. The gold, you have it, it sits in your secure facility. And that's about where it ends. So it is highly attractive to a lot of people to actually be able to actually touch their investment. It's actually quite a unique thing to be able to handle and look at and sort of display, if you wish, your investment.
And you kind of make the point, or you've made the point in the past, that you don't necessarily think people put their whole portfolio into it, but it is that point that you're making around it's something that's very different to the rest of your portfolio. So that's often why I think people come in the first place, because they want to have something that's not the same, that is a little bit genuinely diversified from a portfolio of stocks that everyone has as part of their super, for example. Like it is something that you made that point just at the end. It is something that's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And we use the example quite a lot of Ainsley of the eggs in the basket. I know you're familiar with this one, Chris. You can have your bonds, you can have your dollars, your currencies, you can have your shares, and people think that's diversified, that they've spread their risk because they've got all of these different paper assets. But you've got all the eggs in the one basket, but they're all on the same truck. So if that truck crashes, the eggs in that basket are all going to shatter. Gold and other precious metals like silver, platinum, they're on a different truck. They're eggs in a basket on a completely separate truck that is, affected by completely different factors, or similar factors, but different factors in other forms as well. So that's something I think a lot of people have to remember, is that it is completely separate. It isn't just the difference between you know shares and international shares or local shares or whatever. They're all the same thing in essence. They're all paper assets. So when you add that tangibility in, you have your eggs in a completely different basket on the completely different truck. So if one truck crashes, the other one is still driving towards the target. So I think that's what keeps it attractive to a lot of people, particularly newer buyers as well.
And when these newer buyers are coming in, say for example, it's your first day looking at this, you've stumbled across this video as an example, and you're thinking about it. It's been in the back of your mind, but you don't really know. You go look at the Ainsley website and you see, oh, well, there's bars, there's coins, there's different types. It could be a little bit overwhelming from that really beginner perspective there. How do you approach that angle?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're exactly right. And that, I suppose, is you are spoilt for choice a little bit, particularly with bullion, because there are so many options and so many different shapes and sizes. So as a general rule of thumb, everyone is different, right? You have collectors, you have people who just want to get the best value for money. So there's no one size fits all, but sort of the high level way of looking at it is, the bigger the bar you buy, the closer you're going to pay to spot price or market rate, which is the rate you'll see advertised online. Obviously, with dealers, there are costs involved, and commercially viable reasons why you would charge above and below the market price. But as I said, the general rule of thumb is the bigger you go, and I suppose if the less shiny and the less nice and the less pretty, the cheaper you're going to pay, or the closer to spot, we tend to say. So you can make your own assumptions from there. We've got everything down from a 1 ounce silver coin or a half-ounce silver coin all the way up to kilo bars of gold. So you've got a range there from $30-$40 up to well over $100,000 in one bar. So everything in between there really boils down to your personal preference. But if you just keep it in the back of your head that the bigger, I suppose uglier, for lack of a better word, but it is a shiny rock from the ground at the end of the day. But so the bigger and the uglier the bar, the cheaper you're going to pay. What you lose from that, though, because people will tend to ask, well, why doesn't everyone just buy the biggest they can possibly get? When you're dealing with physical bullion, you can only sell it back in the form that it's bought in. And what I mean by that is, if you buy, say, a 1 kilo gold bar for, let's just say it's $100,000 right now, it's a bit more than that, but let's just say $100,000, and it doubles. When you come to sell that bar back, if that's the only thing you have, you're going to have to sell a $200,000 bar. Now, you may not want to do that. If it's just a house repair or a flat tire, you might not want to sell $200,000 of your investment. So, what you gain in affordability, you lose in liquidity to an extent. So you do have to consider that you are paying for pretty for those smaller bars, but the smaller cast bars, you are actually paying for the ability and the tradability of that. So that's definitely something that people need to consider. But from the high level, that is it. There is a lot that you can dive into from that, but just to give it a super high level, super beginner, that's basically the argument that you have to have with yourself, is that balance of affordability versus liquidity.
And so that probably answers the first question of people, which one do I buy? But then they might have the question about how do I do it? Because that can be confusing as well. There's more than one option there. You can buy
Mm.
online, you can buy over the phone, you can buy in store. What what advice would you give to people who are first time buyers in addressing those different options there? Do they need to, is it something that you come installed for the first time because you want to see the process, or do you buy online for the first time to see what it's like to get sent? I guess your answer is probably going to revolve around everyone being different, but are there some common themes that you've seen from first time buyers there?
Well, yeah, you're right. It is that everyone's different because it is such a personal investment. It is such a personal choice. But I would actually recommend, if you can, to come in for the first time. Even if you are just, we do have a lot of customers who'll just test our online portal with, 1 ounce silver coin or whatever and get that delivered out because maybe they live far away from one of our locations. But I would recommend that if you can come in, it's a physical metal. So you want to look at that. You want to see the options. You want to be able to have a look at the different brands and the different sizes and how they actually feel. Because gold, I think, for a lot of people, it's always quite amusing to me, even after doing it all these years, the people who come in and they know what a kilo is and they know what a kilo feels like if they do it at the gym or moving stuff around their house. But then when you really feel a kilo bar in your hand, the density of gold, because it's such a dense metal, it almost feels heavier than a kilo or heavier than you would expect a kilo to feel. So that's, I suppose, a bit more of a bubbly way of describing why you should come in. Obviously, there's trust reasons. There's the experience of coming into the store. There's the ability to sit down and have that conversation. But I think if you scrub away all those sort of almost obvious reasons as to why I would suggest you would come in and just to actually see the product, it's actually very impressive. And I think a lot of people that I find will come in having done their research online. They'll look at all the products online. They'll come in with an idea of what they want. And then when they actually see it, when they actually touch it, maybe the weight, they hadn't considered the full extent of how much that's going to take up when they actually see the bar. Maybe, they weren't going to buy coins because the premium was too expensive, but they see it and they really just want one on their desk or whatever it may be. So I think when you've got to remember you're dealing with a physical metal, and there's, for all the reasons surrounding buying a physical metal, trust, scarcity, protection of your portfolio, all of these reasons, I think, mean that the best thing you can probably do, if you're able to, is come in and actually sit down in the closed consultation room, go through the security, sit down and have that comfortable conversation. And actually, really, I think it adds to the experience. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of that. Of course, not everyone can make it all the way into the cities that we're in. So, of course, our web store is we've done a lot of work over the years to make it very clear, I think, on what the product looks like, and we do get a lot of people who test the process there with a 1 ounce silver coin, and that's completely fine too, to make sure they're happy and trust the process and feel comfortable with it. But a lot of people will come in for the first time and then they're happy with it. They trust us. We're real. We exist. We're not a warehouse in the middle of nowhere. And then they'll move online because that is a more streamlined process, obviously, than coming into the city every single time they want to buy.
And you've done another video on this with me, talking about the storage side of that, the security side. So once they have made, someone coming into this for the first time has made that decision, has made the purchase. So I won't necessarily get you to go into all of that detail again, because people can certainly find that other video where you talked about that. But when people are buying that first purchase and taking it home, what do they need to think about there? Because that will be a point of contention for some people, I think. And also, I mean, we have the vaulting service as well, so they don't necessarily need to take it home, or there's other storage options. Like there are a lot, and like I said, you did go into that in that video. But if it's your first purchase, what are the tips there?
Yeah, and I think I want to keep reiterating the tangibility of the asset and how that sets it apart from other assets, right? We all know that gold and silver are real, they're physical, you can hold it, but I think that's what you have to consider, particularly the difference between buying gold and perhaps even buying silver. $100,000 of gold will fit in the palm of your hand. $100,000 of silver, you'll need something with wheels to move it around, unless you're, He-Man. So these are considerations that you have to have, and that will affect how you store your level of comfortability. I mean, in terms of where you store it will come into play there. Now, you mentioned it, and we've spoken about it in previous videos. Ainsley can manage the storage. There are other storage options that we can assist with as well. But if you are taking it home, what you need to consider is where you're going to store it, how you're going to store it, and the space in which you're going to store it. So a lot of people like to balance their portfolio with a bit of gold and silver. But as I've just said, the same amount of money can go a much different way for gold and silver when you're talking about the logistics of how you store it. So some people will buy safe, some people will bury it in the backyard, some people will stick it in a sock drawer. So there's so many things that you do need to consider, I suppose, about storing it and how to even take it off the premises. So in that regard, what I reckon you would do is perhaps, whereas I said, come in and have a chat for the first time. If you are sort of committing to purchasing and really wanting to make sure that when you do come in, you are leaving with metal, I would actually contradict my own advice and say, give us a call first and actually talk through, okay, well, how do I actually, if I'm buying 50 kilos of silver, what services do we have? And we do have, services where we can assist to take to your car and all that sort of stuff. I won't go too much into that on the video, but I do reckon it's a good idea before you do come and take it away, that you have made that consideration of where you're actually going to put it, whether you need us to store it, whether you have a storage facility yourself, whether you are comfortable doing it at home, and whether that's logistically viable for you. So I think those are the questions that you do sort of have to ask yourself when you're dealing with a physical metal. It can be really fun, but it can be cumbersome depending on how much you're actually putting in.
And yeah, it obviously depends on the weight, as you sort of pointed out there. If you're coming and your first purchase is a 1 ounce coin, you don't really need to probably make that call before. But when you're talking bigger dollar values or bigger weight, certainly that makes a lot of sense. To wrap this up today, and this is a tricky one because you could go down a deep rabbit hole on this, but part of the title was around innovative products and future trends here. And we do have a digital gold and silver as well. That is our gold standard and silver standard digital tokens that are backed one for one with physical metal. Now, this is going to be appealing to some people. Others might want to start their journey with the physical, the touch, all those tactile things that you've mentioned. But for people who are potentially already comfortable in that digital space, the blockchain space, there is a solution there. Do you want to give a little bit of an overview for people who might be new to bullion but familiar a little bit with blockchain?
Yeah, so essentially the tokens are the gold and silver standard tokens. So what Ainslie have done is we've taken all the reasons that we love gold and silver. I've mentioned a few in this video, and we've mentioned many in previous videos, and all of the things we love about blockchain technology, that sort of digital scarcity angle. And it really just starts to solve that problem you spoke about with the storage. So each metal, respective metal, gold standard and silver standard, for gold and silver, of course, each token represents 1 gram of ownership of that metal. Now, that is all done through the Ethereum network, and we have our silver and gold stored completely independently at the reserve vault. So what that does for you is that allows you to still have that digital ownership of the metal. So you still hold it, you still own it. No one can access your wallet. No one can, except for yourself, can come and take that from you. So you have all those benefits of holding the physical metal without actually having to deal with the cumbersome nature of holding that physical metal. Now, we have a lot of storage options for the physical. I would say that this is sort of a pseudo version of that, where it is a storage option, but it isn't, because you still hold the metal and you can trade those tokens around as you see fit. So I think it is a nice middle ground there on, people who still want to be able to have that access to it and want to trade it around without, maybe there's reasons they don't want Ainslie to be the one managing the storage directly. They want to still move the tokens around. There are a lot of reasons for that we could possibly go into, but that's basically the crux of it. Is combining all the benefits of the two technologies and hopefully stripping away some of the cons. So that's where the logic has come into for that. So it's an offering there. Now, I realize I started this with a powerful statement of if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Now, I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will say, that's not holding it, that's not owning it. I completely understand. We can rebut that for those who understand the nature of blockchain technology, of course. But given that this is a beginner video, we probably won't go too far down that rabbit hole. But it is an offering that I would absolutely suggest people go out and have a look at and have a bit of a research in. If you're already someone who's familiar with the crypto space, if you are a beginner coming into the bullion space, I would probably just come into the store and have a look at the physical offerings first, and then we can talk a little crypto and go down that journey a little later.
Look, I think this was really valuable today for people who are brand new to this space to really strip it back to basics. And I think you've offered a lot of really good ideas there, a lot of tips for people who are new. So we'll encourage people who are new to the space to maybe watch this and sort of think through some of those points that you've raised. But really appreciate your work on that today. Thanks for that, Bailey.
No worries. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.